Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there.
Today is March 10th, 2025. We are here with Mike Brunger, who served in the Michigan Army National Guard. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing great. How's it going?
Good. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where are you from?
I grew up in Weberville, Michigan. I'm the oldest of 10 kids. We range from me being 43, and my youngest sibling is, I believe he's 18 now. So lots of kids. Grew up basically around Weberville, moving from like Weberville to like Williamston, Perry, Fowlerville. Currently live in Fowlerville.
And what did your parents do?
My dad was a farmer, so a lot of our moving was moving farm to farm, because you take a farm job back in the late 80s, early 90s. It was, you get a house, so you had no rent at that point. So he was a farmer, and my mom, for the most part, she was a stay-at-home mom. She'd do certain jobs, odds and end jobs, go get a job at Walmart if need be, or something like that.
Where'd you go to high school at?
I graduated from Weberville High School in 1999, so a long time ago.
You're an old man.
I try.
Did you play any sports in high school?
Yeah, I was captain of the football team, captain of the track team. I was captain of the drum line, captain of the all-state drum line. Everything I did, I tried to be the best at everything I did. So put a lot of energy into just doing what I could to help the team.
And at what point did you decide that you wanted to join the military, or what pushed you to join?
Well, originally in high school, I had to try out for the active duty Army band, and I just didn't go. I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. I think I'm going to do college. I ended up not going to college. After high school, I went through the whole process of joining the Marine Corps, had a tattoo that stuck up a little high above the shirt, so I couldn't join. And I mean, I always wanted to serve growing up. I always wanted to do something like that. And I just remember in 2007, when I enlisted, about a month before I enlisted, I went to my aunt's house, and my cousin was getting ready to join. I had no clue, so this recruiter was there. She kind of looked at me, and she's like, well, why don't you join? I'm like, oh, I have a tattoo. No one likes it. They won't let me in. She took a look at it, and she's like, we'll take you. And I left like 3 weeks later for basic training.
What MEPS did you go to?
Lansing MEPS. So smaller MEPS, it was nice.
Okay. And when you went through, did you know what job you wanted, or how did that happen?
Not really, because at that time, I had my first child, so I was kind of not really knowing what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something. I kind of wanted to do infantry, but my now ex-wife, she was my girlfriend at that time, she really didn't like the whole idea of infantry, so we didn't go that option. And I was thinking truck driver, something like that, a skill I could use in the civilian world. And she didn't like that as well, because trucks get hit or whatever overseas. And I was like, whatever, just give me a job. So I enlisted as a 92 Foxtrot fueler. Ended up doing that, which it's funny, she didn't want me to drive a truck, and I'm driving a giant fuel truck. So.
And do you remember what date you shipped out for basic training?
It was May 7th, 2007.
May 7th, 2007. And where did you go to basic training?
I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And what's that name now? Or did they name it back?
I know. They keep changing the names, changing them back. So I don't know what it's called now.
Okay. I know. I just remember they changed one to Fort Moore. Now it's
Yeah, Benny went to Moore, and
now it's back to
Benny.
Yeah. Um. So you're at basic training, and tell me about. Is this your first time away from home? Is it like what are the feelings that you're having?
For me, it was kind of, I don't want to say it was easy, but I was an adult at that time. I was 25 years old when I joined. So the whole just shut up and do what you're told was kind of easy for me. Didn't really have an issue with it. I played sports all my life. I played semi-pro football after high school. So all the athletic and physical aspect of it was fairly easy to me. And the whole mental game part of it was pretty easy to me because at that point, I was an adult. Already had 10, 15 jobs by that point. So getting told what to do, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll just do it. Life will be easy. So for me, it was easy.
Is there anybody that you still communicate with that you were at basic training?
No, not really. For a while, there was a guy we would fly and visit each other, and then life got in the way. I kept having kids and still having kids. So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, so you're at basic training. Is there anything significant that you would want to mention about basic training?
I think it was fun. I mean, the whole it's pretty cool because your mind is gone. You have no time to think about anything except what's the next task I have to do. So it's kind of like a vacation of sorts. Instead of wondering, oh man, I don't like this job at home. Now I need to find another job. It's just like, I'm just going to sit here, do push-ups, crawl in sand, shoot guns. I mean, I'm going to do fun stuff. I didn't have to think about anything. Obviously, you miss home and having a child at that time. So it was a little rough there, but they keep you so focused and so busy that you don't have time to think about that stuff.
And the son that you had at that time was your son, right?
Yep.
He's now in the guard.
Yep, I just punched his chest in yesterday. He just got his 5.
Oh, nice. So he's a sergeant.
Yep.
And what's his name?
Travis Brunger.
Travis Brunger. Sergeant Travis Brunger. So you get done with basic training. What was your enlistment option? Did you do like a 3-year? Did you do a 6-year?
I did a 6-year because they had $20,000 bonus. I was like, well, there's no point doing a 3-year, not getting a bonus if I wanted to do this my whole life. So I was like, I might as well just do a 6-year, get a little extra cash in my pocket because being 25, new dad, is a little rough. So
Yeah.
financially, it was a little rough. So any little bit of money I could pocket was nice.
And so you joined the National Guard, Michigan Army National Guard, and what was your duty station? Your 1 weekend a month.
It was in Howell, Michigan.
And what was the unit's name?
It was the 1462nd Transportation Company.
Okay.
It's attached to the maintenance platoon, being a fueler. So
Okay, yeah, it's 246. I was at battalion then, but so you graduate basic training. Did family come to watch you graduate, or?
yeah, it was pretty cool. Like the whole family day thing was cool because at Fort Jackson, I don't know if you've been there, but they have the whole parade field with the bleachers and stuff, and like 150 yards away that it's just woods. So like family day, all the drill sergeants popped smoke and we came running out. And it was funny because we're sitting there hiding in the woods and I see this humongous guy. He's like 6'5", 350, and I'm like, oh my God, that's my friend Lester. So my girlfriend at the time, she convinced my best friend at the time to come down. So his wife came down, my parents came down, my grandma, my girlfriend at the time, my son. It was pretty cool.
It's awesome. So you graduate, and then you come back and you have your first unit drill. Tell me about that.
It was eye-opening because you're at basic training, AIT and everything. You're standing at parade rest, you're doing all this stuff. And the first person I stood at parade rest to, she looked at me, she's like, "Stop doing that, you're making me nervous." And I'm like, "What's going on?" So I'm just sitting there, she's like, "You're maintenance. We're cool. We just, don't disrespect us, but we don't do like the whole dog and pony show." So I was like, "Okay, this is really weird." So it was odd, but it was fun. It was, like I said, it was 1 week a month, so it was a commitment, but it wasn't like the end of the world. I'm flying overseas to be stationed somewhere for 3 years active duty or anything. It was cool. I can live. At the time I was living in Williamston, so I can drive half an hour to drill. No big deal. It was fun.
So your annual training, you go for your 2 weeks. Tell me a little bit about like some of the times you had an annual training.
Well, actually, my first annual training, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought all annual trainings was like this, but we went to San Diego, California. So that was my very first experience of an annual training, and it was phenomenal. It was awesome, and there's three of us that were new, and that was our first AT ever. And all the older guys were like, "Oh, great, their first one here. Now they're going to expect this every year." And we did until the following year when we went to Grey Wing. Realized it was not like a border mission patrol in San Diego. It was a little different. So that AT was sweet. We got to actually climb in the tank that was in the movie Flags of Our Fathers.
Oh, nice.
So our maintenance bay was right there on the border, and that guy owned it. So Paramount, Sony, whatever movie studio, they paid him to bring this tank in because it was the most realistic for that time period, like in the world. So that was cool.
It's a really good movie too. So when you were at annual training, did you guys go to the field and then like you fueled in the field? Was there?
Yeah, in San Diego, it was a little different. I was kind of a fake mechanic at that time, being attached to maintenance, which 90% of the job was a fake mechanic. So I just sit there, help the mechanics. "Hey, go get me this, go get me that, or here, help me do this." But yeah, I would end up fueling in the field, like especially grailing or whatever. Most of the time, I just tell my platoon sergeant, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to fuel row." He's like, "Why didn't tell him it was fuel time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to fuel row." He's like, "All right, cool. You need to get out of here, get away for people to go." So I just go hang out at fuel roll and grailing, and trucks would roll up and fuel them. They keep going. Easy job.
It's right there on the fence, right?
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
Right when you go from Garrison to where all the ranges are.
Okay. And how many trucks would you guess that you fueled
Overall,
in an annual training cycle?
there would be a lot of times because the 1462nd had the largest tanker in the state. So I would just fuel everyone. They'd have all of us there. We just fuel, and I'd always get the best spot. So I'd be the first one. So it'd be every truck that would be up there. So hundreds of trucks every single day rolling through.
Yeah.
I get them done in a good 3-4 hour window. And if there's night missions, we do a night fueling or something so they could go fuel before their mission.
Okay. And so you're doing annual trainings, and when it's at one point you guys get activated when you go to Iraq, you get deployed, right?
Yeah, we got activated. We went to Kuwait, and then halfway through the deployment, half of us got forwarded to Afghanistan, and I got chosen for that as well.
Okay, so you find out that like, how did you find out you were getting deployed?
Well, there's always like the rumors. Everyone's like, "Oh, I think we're deploying," all this stuff, and you just don't read into it. And there's that one formation where they told us, and everyone's like, and all of a sudden you see all the old crusty guys pulling this thing called a 20-year letter in their pocket. And they're like, "I ain't going nowhere. My wife's dealt with this 3 times. I'm not doing it again." So clearly they didn't go, but yeah, they just told us that formation, and I just accepted it. I was like, "Oh, it can happen at some point, so just take the punches and do it."
And what year was that?
That was 2012.
2012. And at this point, how old is your son? Are you married?
At that point, my son is 10, and then my daughter would have been 3, and I was married. at that point. Yes.
And how did that go at home? Like when you went and told your,
Well, she didn't like the idea of it, but she knew it was bound to happen at some point if I decided to make a career out of it, which at that point she kind of realized, okay, this idiot's going to make a career out of it, so just roll with it, give them some support. Yeah, the kids, they loved it and hated it. So,
so you're getting employed, your family's going through this, you're going through this, and did you do a pre-mob anywhere?
yeah, we went to Fort Bliss in Texas, right in El Paso, and it was a pretty good time. It was funny because when we showed up, like 3 days later, it snowed in El Paso, and they blamed us. They're like, you guys were supposed to come down here, bring your gear, not the weather. So they shut down El Paso completely because they never drove on ice or snow or anything. And after the snow melted the next day, they're like, oh man, we should have just had you guys run public transport, driving buses around because you're used to driving in this stuff.
And what time of year was that?
It was December 2011 when we actually left to go to Bliss. And then we were boots on ground January 17th of 2012.
Boots on ground
Kuwait.
in Kuwait. And where did you arrive in Kuwait?
We arrived in Al Salim. Then we took 18 bus rides everywhere around the country for some reason. And ended up in Camp Arif John.
Camp Arif John. And when you got there, when you're flying in and you land and you get off the plane, tell me a little bit about that experience.
All that heat hit you. The heat and the smell. It's a different world over there. All the countries over there in the Middle East, it's so hot. Compared to America, I mean, just the smell, it was horrible. And
What's the smell like?
I don't know, like sitting in an outhouse for 6 hours. It did not smell good at all.
What's that due to?
I have no clue.
Was it like sanitation issues?
It's more than likely a sanitation issue or something. And they kept telling the story like it used to be underwater and all that stuff. So everything you're walking on is like poop and this stuff from thousands of years ago or whatever. I was just like, whatever, I just know it smells. So
did the whole country smell like
yes,
that? Oh,
the whole country, which is weird because like Kuwait, like you go near Kuwait City, it's beautiful country. I mean, it's just weird. And it's not like super poor country either because of all the oil. Like you can smell the oil fields burning as well too. So that was another smell I can't get out of my nose.
and so when you arrived at Arif Job, is that the largest post in Kuwait, the American Post, the U.S. Post?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so
It is pretty big.
when you arrived there, tell me about your living conditions, your food, those types of things.
Well, it was funny because the first thing, like everyone always had this concern of getting attacked or whatever, and it was odd and hilarious that the first thing we did when we got to Arif John was turn our weapons in. We just put them in the arms room and never saw them again while we were in Kuwait. But the living conditions were great. We had hard structure buildings. It was kind of like built like a pole barn, smaller obviously. There was like 20 people there. We had lockers, so we set up kind of like room type areas. Air conditioning was great. Didn't need the heat. So if you needed the heat, you just open the door because it was super hot out. But the air conditioning worked great. The food was the best food I've probably ever had because it was all contracted in. And if you didn't like what they're making, you just look to the left. There's a pasta bar, there's a salad bar, there's a burrito bar, there's a sandwich bar. It was great.
And your living quarters, like, did you have a roommate? I mean, how big was the living quarters that you stayed in?
It was probably like a 40 by 20, like pole barn type building, fully insulated and everything. And they had, like I said, they had the lockers positioned in a way where it was like 2 sets of bunk beds, so 4 people in an area.
And how big of an area though?
It was probably 10 by 10-ish, about 100 square foot.
And 4 people lived in that?
Yeah. It wasn't
room.
Yeah, it wasn't much room, but we made the best out of it. It's not like we were in a room that much anyways. Being maintenance, we were always working on something or eating or just strolling around Camp Aircon, take a dip in the pool, go to the mall.
Mhm. What was at the mall? Like what would you go to the?
Everything. I mean, it was kind of like in other people's deployments, like everywhere has like the bazaar type area, the place they call the bazaar, all the shops and stuff. And it was just an indoor, the exact same thing, but indoor. So they had a music store there, and me being a drum, I ordered a drum set, get that shipped over there. So I had something to do.
Okay. And did you have any times outside the wire? Like did you go on any?
I did not because I was maintenance. All of maintenance stayed in except the tow truck drivers. But because we were a transportation unit, all the trucks, they were moving supplies in and out of from Arif John to Beering, Dolly Isolane. They were doing all that mission. But maintenance, we just sat there. And the fueling was it was all contracted out. So like my job there was the environmental officer for the unit. So I would control like all the POL, any hazmat supplies we had. I had like big air conditioned like storage lockers. So I just put all the stuff there, and if anyone needed something, they'd have to come find me.
So you're in the country, and you mentioned that you got moved to Afghanistan.
Yeah, it was about halfway through the deployment. We had a big formation, informal formation. They just kind of told us, hey, half of you are going to Afghanistan for like 3, 4 months. So we're taking volunteers now. If we don't get enough volunteers, we're drawing names. And at that point, they needed one of the fuelers to go, and it was just me and my partner at the time. And she was older than me and had a health condition type thing from being over there. She hurt her arm or something. So I got chosen. I was voluntold. You were going to Afghanistan. Like, yeah, whatever. I'll do it. I don't care. It was pretty good time. Not too bad.
What was the temperature difference between?
Afghanistan is like Michigan. Like the weather, they have the seasons, and it wasn't much different. Like we arrived right around the 4th of July, it would take a week. We arrived there, the mountains were still snow capped. But it was a cool country. Kuwait was hot. Kuwait hit 149 degrees. Yeah, that was really warm. So being maintenance, we worked night shift. So the coolest part of that day was 115. That was the coldest. Oh, funny story about Kuwait. When we arrived, one of my buddies, he had deployed like multiple times with other guard units and active duty. And I'm looking around and everyone's wearing a hoodie because we got in ground in January. And I'm like, it's 100 degrees here or like 90 degrees there. I'm like, why is everyone wearing a hoodie? He goes, oh, just wait till we leave. You'll be wearing 2 or 3 of them. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. Yeah, when we left, I was wearing a hoodie. Just because you get so used to in the summer it being 120 to 150 that once it hits 90, you're like freezing. It was so cold. Yeah, it was so cold. But Afghanistan was just like Michigan.
So you get to Afghanistan, and what are your living quarters like there? And your food?
The food was still amazing. It was great food because everything's contracted out. We did find this little secret spot no one knew about. It was a barbecue chow ball. So we'd hit that up every now and then. It was pretty cool. Everything was barbecue. It's like you were in Texas. So you can get barbecue this, barbecue that. It was great. Everything was just amazing.
So what was the post you were at?
I was in Bagram Airfield. Yeah, so it wasn't that bad. The living conditions, they weren't horrible. Like I arrived before most of the other people that got forwarded arrived. So we were in hard structure buildings. They were like 12 by 30 foot, and there's like 8 of us in there. Just like you picture a barracks. That's just how it was. There were sets of bunk beds on each side. It wasn't too bad. The rest of the people, when they arrived, they were in it's kind of like an inflatable tent. It's this weird giant tent in the middle of nowhere. So it kind of sucked to be down. I was right next to the chow hall, so I loved it.
Nice. And so you're in Afghanistan. How long did you end up staying in Afghanistan?
I was there about 4 months. It was a little shy of 4 months.
So from there, do you go back to Kuwait and then ship home with your
Yep.
unit?
Yep. We went back to Kuwait for a little less than a month, probably 3 weeks, and then we all came home.
Okay. And what was the feeling like when you got home? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
It was great, but it was weird because I don't know. I was used to waking up, looking over, and picking on someone. If I did that, like, why the time would get mad if I just woke up and pick on her? So you get used to having someone like sleeping 8 foot from you, and you just making fun of them. Then you get home, and it was quiet. I still have to sleep with the fan on because all the generator noise. I need that now to try and fall asleep. But it was great seeing my kids again. It was amazing.
And were there, as far as adjusting, did you have any problems adjusting back to being a civilian? Well, you're not a civilian, but you're coming back to your 1 weekend a month, and
Yeah, it's kind of, it wasn't the 1 week a month thing. I was looking forward to that, seeing the guys and picking on them again. But just realizing, oh man, I have to go back to work. I have to go do a normal job again. It was horrible.
and what was your job when you came back, and what'd you do?
Oh, geez, I don't even remember. I was more than likely insulating houses because I did that for a very long period of my life. Insulate houses, and it just sucked having to come back and do all that again.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country.
So you come back, you start doing your 1 weekend a month again, and then how long did you do your 1 weekend a month? And then I know you became a recruiter. How long were you doing that before you became a recruiter?
I did the MBA, the 1 week a month, for 12 years. So from 2007 to 2019, I did that. At that point, I was like, you know what? I think I've had enough of this. You know, I got promoted a couple times. I was a E6. So in 2019, I actually got out for 4 months and 4 days. I got out and got right back in. It was just weird being out. I'm looking at my bank account, my bills. I'm like, why am I like hundreds of dollars short every single month? I'm like, oh, that drill check.
Yeah.
So I missed that drill check, and then the guys, you try and keep in touch with them, but I mean, everyone has life, and something cool happens on a weekend, you call a buddy up, and oh, I drilled this weekend. I'm like, dang it. So I just got back in. And that's when I started the recruiting. I was on ADOS pretty much immediately once I got back in September of 2019.
So you were on ADOS, which means
It was an additional duty. It was like a civilian job, but it was prepping me to become a recruiter.
so you were active duty operational support.
Yes.
Okay. I just have you explain it so that if anybody's listening to it, they can
Oh yeah.
understand exactly what you're saying.
There's so many like ADOS options.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. Every unit has some, especially in recruiting. They're always looking for a recruiter assistant, which is what I was. I did that until like February of 2020. That's when I became OT recruiter, which is one-time occasional tour. So it was like I was an actual recruiter with my own area, but I wasn't full-blown AGR yet. And then the following September, I got the full-blown AGR during COVID. That was fun.
So were you out of how old when you started?
No, when I was ADOS, I was a recruiter assistant for Lapeer and Saginaw. So driving from, at that point, I was living in Perry, driving like an hour just to go to work. That wasn't fun, but the pay was nice. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I want to be a recruiter. So I have to go through the steps to become a recruiter. And that's what I did.
So you start recruiting. So tell me about a typical day in recruiting, a typical month, like what all did you do?
There's really no typical when it comes to recruiting other than going to the office, putting in the work, and going home sometime late at night. That's the only thing typical. Every day is different. You try and set appointments, try and tell your experiences, talk to these high school students, and just basically tell them how you can help them. And that's what I love most about recruiting. I didn't care about having the most numbers or anything like that. I wanted to help the most people out that I could. Like my very first enlistment was a kid that would have never joined the military if I wouldn't have done a finance presentation at Howell High School. He did that. His parents made great money. They could have paid for college, but his story was he didn't want to burden his parents. He's like, if I can do this 1 week in a month and pay for my college, why wouldn't I? So that was like the coolest thing in the world to me. It was great helping the kids like him.
So you did classroom presentations, and your schools were what were your schools?
I had like the eastern half of Ingham County and part of Livingston County. So like Weberville, Williamson, Stockbridge, Dansville, Fowlerville, Howell, Heartland. At one point I had Dexter and Pinckney as well. So it was rough having so many schools. So they had a recruiter to the office and I cut my schools in half or whatever. It was great because I could focus more on the schools themselves and the students and all that, but it was a small area, so I wanted more area back.
And you spent a lot of your time in Howell. I mean, they have ROTC, right? JROTC.
Yes, Howell High School has a JROTC, so I spent a ton of time there working with like the instructors there, judging their drill competitions. Anything I could help the program with, I would, because they would in turn help me out. Like I also volunteered for the Livingston County Fireworks Committee. So like one of our events was a great event, Wreaths Across America. We would do it at a Fowlerville Cemetery every December, and they always needed more volunteers. So I would just end up calling the Howell JROTC instructor, and he'd bring cadets out there. So they'd help fluff up the wreaths and help place the wreaths on fallen graves. So that it was a good partnership with them.
Okay. So how many? What maps did you usually go to? The military entrance and processing station. What did you use for maps?
I would try to use Lansing as much as possible, just because the proximity to the Howell office is a lot closer. Well, when we started, we were only using Troy maps because it was a large maps, so it was very quick. You know, everything happened very fast, and then it kind of turned. It shifted to where Lansing was more efficient for us. So I started using Lansing and always used it since then.
And what year did you start recruiting?
As an ADOS, I started in 2019. AGR was 2020.
2020. When in 2020 was it? Before, after COVID?
It was after COVID. Like when I got the OTOT, that was February 14th of 2020. My first enlistment was February 26th of 2020, and then 3 weeks later COVID hit. And that sucked.
So tell me a little bit about how you had to adjust your recruiting strategies.
Recruiting at that point, it kind of went to social media, which I was never good at. So I kind of struggled trying to learn it. We'd have tons of classes, do this in your social media stuff. And I'd be like, all right, well, what's an Instagram? And they're like, oh no, this is not going to be fun. So I just kind of, because of the relationships I built up, because the entire recruiting area I had that I just named, I grew up in that area. So I already had more contacts than any first day recruiter had. I already knew all the teachers at like half the schools I had. So that kind of helped me out because I would just call the teacher and be like, hey, can I get in your classroom? I know it's COVID. They're like, all right, Mike, you know the rules, follow the rules, stay away from the kids, just do a presentation. And I was the only recruiter for like a year allowed in like 3 high schools.
Well, it's pretty good that you had that type of relationship.
Yes.
But yeah, I know COVID changed a lot of the recruiting environment. So, is there any anything in recruiting, any significant things that happened in recruiting that you'd want to mention?
Yeah, it was actually production year 22. It was my rookie year going into recruiting, which is my first full year after going to recruiting school. I got recruiter of the year and rookie of the year the same year. So my rookie year, I was the rookie of the year, and then I was also the director of 54 recruiter of the year for the state of Michigan. And I think at that time, in my entire recruiting year, I think I was 3 or 4 times the Vincent County recruiter of the year. So I was pretty much every year.
That's good. That's a pretty prestigious award. They only give that out to how many people per year?
There's 54, one for every, the D54 award.
Yep.
Yep, there's one for every state or territory. That's it.
Yep. So you were the one who won it for the entire state.
Correct.
Did you go on to any other competitions after you won Directors 54?
Yeah, once you win Directors 54, you go to what's called the SMAG, which is kind of like the regional. There's 7 states. We all board and you compete to see who's the regional recruiter of the year. And then there's the national. I went to that. That was in New Orleans. That was pretty cool to hang out right after Mardi Gras. We went down there, and then all the regional winners competed for the national recruiter of the year. I did not win regional or national. I had COVID, so I was stuck in a hotel room with COVID, trying not to die.
So you really didn't get to enjoy?
Not the regional one, no. I went there. It's funny because all the sergeant majors on the board, they're like, "God, your guy's faking it." Until one of them caught it, and they're like, "All right, he wasn't faking it. I had what he had." And I just felt horrible. So.
Yeah, so right now are you recruiting currently?
I am not a street recruiter. I'm still in the recruiting and retention battalion.
And what do you do at the recruiting and retention battalion?
I kind of show up. I'm at that point where I'm in the process of a med board, getting medicaled out. So they just have to keep eyes on me, make sure I'm still kicking.
And so you're gonna get out here. Do you have a date like when you're gonna get out? Or?
I do not have a date right now. I'm going through the whole process of just going to 8 million appointments so they can see what rating I'll have DOD and VA side. And then once they determine a number, that's when I get a date. So we're still waiting on that. I think it'll probably be August, September time frame.
Okay. And what's your plan when you get out? Or what are some of your thoughts at least?
I have no clue. I've done this so long, been in, it's kind of weird to think of doing anything else. So I have a buddy who owns a card shop. Maybe I'll go work with him. I mean, he owns like 5 companies. He's mentioned me like taking control of all 5 of them, running all 5 of them. Or I have a couple of veteran organizations I've worked with. They told me once I'm out, I need to contact them. They'll hire me. So kind of just throwing it at the wall, see what sticks.
What kind of card company?
Like trading cards.
Okay, like sports trading cards.
Yeah, sports trading cards. He has a lot of like autographed jerseys and helmets and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a Tom Brady autographed helmet, I got you.
I don't think I can afford that.
Oh, that's expensive.
So if anybody is there anything else you want to talk about that that I didn't ask?
No, we covered it.
Okay. So if anyone's listening to this interview, what would you want them to take away from our conversation?
I would have them go talk to a recruiter and just hear what they have to say before dismissing the idea of military service. The military world, it changes so much that, like, say if you're mom, dad, uncle, aunt, brother, someone else joined, it's completely different now. It's not the same. Like the Vietnam guys have a different story than the Desert Storm guys that I have. We all have a different story. We all went through different stuff. Basic training is completely different now than it was 40 years ago, or shoot, it's different now than it was 5 years ago. Like everything's just so different. And if you do decide to enlist, I would just have you remember that the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. If you're just that guy that hangs out in the back of the room, just trying to get through the drill day, you're not really enjoying anything, your military service is going to be horrible. But if you're the guy that's want to progress your career and do more and get that rank and beat that guy in push-ups or whatever, you're gonna get a lot more out of it. Every person I enlisted, I told them that. The more you put into it, is the more you'll get out of it.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives podcast.